You can do in the garage, we can see they do in the back, and then we can rent it.
Drink, you know what I mean? And they're not over there.
I know, and we keep this under 750 square feet, and the development fees are only $5,000,
And
right?
if you're there,
All right,
you
you
can
guys
do owner occupied.
Testing. The screens aren't on here either.
I'll probably stay here.
There we go.
We did the rest.
We're gonna call to order. 7 o'clock, Pledge of Allegiance, if you wouldn't mind joining me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, so.
Go to the roll call.
Councilmember Kay,
Present.
Councilmember Stroman,
Here.
Councilmember Engel,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. Looks like we have a presentation from Chief today, right? City Manager, did you want to start?
Yeah, I'll just introduce it. This is continuing our efforts to inform and educate the community on topics that are of interest. So this week, we're having constitutional law and law enforcement, how the Constitution affects what we can and can't do in law enforcement. So Chief has put together a good presentation, including a video about a real life incident nearby. And so that's what the purpose of this presentation is about. I'll turn it over to Chief.
So start by saying, so there are three aspects of communication. There's what you're trying to say, how you say it, and then how it's received on the other end. And so that brings out your two aspects of law. You've got letter of the law and spirit of the law. Spirit of the law is what the legislatures are trying to convey or what they're trying to do with the law. And then there's letter of the law, which is what it actually says and then how it's interpreted by different people. So to understand the Constitution, you kind of got to understand its origins, how it came to be, and look at it from the perspective of the authors. And so before getting into law enforcement and studying the Constitution, I was kind of under the impression that the founding fathers got together, we're going to rebel, we're going to start our own country, and that's how the Declaration of Independence kind of came to be, and it all happened kind of at the same time. It actually took place over a course of several years, and the initial intent was not to break away from the British, but just to get fair treatment from the British. That escalated into war and the Declaration of Independence. So the Constitution, as we know it, was drafted in 1787 and was formed over several years of tyranny, war, peace, and debate. It began in 1774 with the Constitutional Congress. They just formed to resist the British government. They wanted fair and equitable treatment. They didn't like how they were being treated by the king, and it wasn't to separate from Britain. It was just to try to get fair treatment. A year later is when the Revolutionary War started in 1775, and then after a year of war is when they decided we're no longer going to be a part of the Britain and wrote the Declaration of Independence. And so the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, government are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In simpler terms, the purpose of the government is to protect the rights of the citizens. And this is what the entire Constitution is founded upon. It's people have rights, and the government's job is to protect those rights. And then to escape the tyranny of the king and prevent despotism and protect the rights of individuals, the colonies sought to create a structure that would address their many grievances. This led to the Articles of Confederation, which was kind of the first iteration of the Constitution. It was more of a treaty among states more than it was an actual governing document. The federal government had very little powers. Each state was represented. They had one representative in the Constitutional Congress, and each state was essentially their own country. It was kind of like the European Union more than it was like the United States that we know today. And then the framers realized that the Articles of Confederation did not give the federal government enough power to maintain an enduring union or place enough restrictions on the states. And they saw problems that could arise. And so they sought to address them before they manifested. And they operated under the Articles of Confederation for about 9 years before the Constitution was drafted and ratified and put into effect. And so the U.S. Constitution was drafted in 1787 and ratified in 1788, and it established 3 branches of government we know today. The legislature, which makes the laws, the executive, which enforces the law, and then the judicial, which applies the law, and then tries cases, hands down sentences. And this established the government structure that we know today, which is used by pretty much every branch of government in some form. After the Constitution was the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is what establishes what the rights that are going to be protected are in the Constitution. You have the First Amendment, which is the freedom of religion, speech, and the press, the right to assemble, petition the government for a redress of grievances. You have the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, the Third Amendment, which is restriction on quartering soldiers, the Fourth Amendment, which is freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures and warrant requirements, the Fifth Amendment, grand jury requirement, double jeopardy, protection against self-incrimination, due process of law, and just compensation. This is when people say plead the Fifth, they're invoking their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. The Sixth Amendment is a right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, to be informed of the nature and cause of actions, to be confronted by witnesses against you, and to compel witnesses for your defense, and the right to counsel. And then the Seventh Amendment is the right to a jury trial for suits of common law, which common law would be civil law. It doesn't really apply to law enforcement. The Eighth Amendment is the freedom of excessive bail, fines, and cruel and unusual punishment. And you have the Ninth Amendment, which is the rights. Ninth Amendment says the rights not listed in the Constitution, but not all. It basically says the Bill of Rights is not an exhaustive list. There are more rights that the people have. They're just not listed here. And then that kind of works hand in hand with the 10th Amendment, which says the power is not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution or reserved by the states or prohibited to it by the states, or remain the rights of the people. And then the 14th Amendment came later after slavery ended, and the part of this that affects law enforcement is equal protection. And this is kind of where discretion comes into play. So officers can't just pick and choose what laws we're going to enforce and how we're going to enforce them. We have to apply the rules equally and fairly across the board.
Tonight, the San Joaquin County District Attorney says 2 7-Eleven workers caught on camera beating an alleged robber are not under investigation. A warning, though, this video may be pretty tough to watch. We showed you this last week. A man seen scooping boxes of cigarettes and other items into a trash can and threatening the workers. But before he can escape, those 2 employees, you watch them hold him down and then beat him with a broom. Now, Stockton police say they are investigating this, looking through that video as well. But the DA says the focus will be on holding the alleged robber accountable and that the clerks are not suspects.
And so that video kind of seems somewhat contradictory. That's how our justice system works, where you have the Stockton Police Department saying they're investigating it, and then the DA's office saying, well, no, we're not investigating them. It's not the police officer's job to determine the merits of a crime. Our sole purpose is to determine whether or not a crime was committed. And in this case, you have the robbery, which is the 211, and then you have the victims of the 211 that held him down and then beat him with broomsticks. And technically it's a crime. Were they acting in self-defense and were their actions justified? That's not the job for the police department to determine. Our job is to document the facts, take the totality of the circumstances and then send it to the DA. And in this case, the DA made the correct decision, in my opinion, as to not pursue charges. But as law enforcement, we're still obligated to investigate that and submit it to the DA as a potential crime. Because all we're trying to do is determine whether or not a crime was committed and who committed a crime, and gather any evidence, both incriminating evidence and exculpatory evidence, aggravating factors, mitigating factors, and let the district attorney determine whether or not to pursue charges. And so in order to do our jobs, officers, we need to know the government's purpose and the role within the government and where we fall within that system. First and foremost, the government's purpose is to protect the rights of its citizens. And as agents of the government, our duty is to protect the rights of the citizens, both the victims and the suspects. We want justice for the victims, but we still have to protect and preserve the rights of the suspect, because they are innocent until proven guilty, and they have to be treated accordingly. So the American justice system works, it's like cogs. You have the legislative, your city council, your state senates, they make the laws. They are the ones that says, this is what a crime is, this is what's illegal, this is what you can and can't do. As police officers, we don't do that. We don't make the determination of what's illegal. We don't make the determination of what a crime is. The legislature says what a crime is. We just enforce the laws that they write. If they say something's a crime, we investigate it. If we can establish probable cause, we can make an arrest, or we can refer it to the DA for charges. And then that's when the courts take over and it gets tried through the courts. And ultimately, if no plea agreement is reached in the courts, or the case is dismissed by the courts, then it goes to a jury trial, where in essence, everything is adjudicated by a jury of your peers. So law enforcement role falls, as law enforcement, we're in the executive branch. We enforce the laws that are passed by the legislature, as well as code ordinances passed by the governing bodies. So we investigate the allegations of violations of law, gather any necessary evidence for the prosecution and defense, and determine if probable cause exists to believe a particular person committed a crime. We must remain impartial and realize that we are working for both the victim and the suspect. We must seek justice for the victim while preserving the rights of the suspects. We don't decide what behavior is criminal. Conversely, if the elements of the crime are not met, if the elements of the crime are met, we can't tell a victim that their case is without merit. This is also an area where we run into problems where it's, well, I don't think that's a big deal. And I'm not acting on behalf of me. There's a victim who wants justice. I'm acting on behalf of that victim. If they don't want charges pressed, then they can sign a request for non-prosecution form and we can drop the case, but that's not a decision I can make. I can't say that your victimization was petty or meaningless, and so we're not going to take action. At the very least, we need to document the facts, gather all the evidence, and refer it to the district attorney for charges. And then deciding the merit of the case, if the charges should be filed, that's done by the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office is the one who will actually review the case, and then they can make the determination based on the totality of the circumstances whether or not to pursue charges. Their threshold is much greater. So as law enforcement, we just have to look at probable cause. Is there probable cause to believe a crime was committed and a particular person committed that crime? That's essentially 51, 52%. You just have to have more likely than not happened than it didn't happen. When it goes to court, the prosecutor, they're looking at it from a beyond a reasonable doubt. And they also have to factor in jury appeal. How's this going to play before a jury, and will we be able to secure a conviction? And so that's why there might be something that happens as an arrest, where you have the officer saying that, no, technically a crime was committed. They send it to the DA. The DA dismisses the charges, and they think, oh, it was all BS. The police department acted incorrectly. There was nothing there. It's like, no, there was probable cause. The DA just didn't feel that there was, they could prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, or that it would play before a jury. And they can also take into, that is one of the things we get on declinations from the DA, where if it's a pettier crime, we arrest them, we book them in jail, they spend a couple nights in jail, they'll dismiss the case, agency action sufficient, which means whether or not they're guilty of it, even if they are, the action taken by the agency, the couple days they spent in jail was sufficient as far as serving the purposes of justice. The law enforcement's use of the Constitution. So as police officers, we're one of the few government agencies that are entrusted with the power to encroach on people's civil liberties. We have the right to stop people, detain people, arrest them, take their freedom away. Unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We routinely take away people's liberty. That's what we do. And so we need to know the law, we need to know the Constitution, and we need to make sure that the laws we are enforcing are on the books and we are interpreting them correctly. And this can be done through, generally it's done through case law. The Fourth Amendment is the amendment that we use most, search and seizure. Pretty much everything we do is a search and seizure. Every time we arrest somebody, it's considered a seizure of that person. We're looking for evidence. That's kind of our job, is to find evidence, document evidence. That's searches. So two major case laws revolving around the Fourth Amendment and search and seizure are Graham versus Connor and then Terry versus Ohio. Graham versus Connor establishes reasonable suspicion. That's our threshold to make a detention. So just to stop and detain somebody, we don't need to have probable cause. We need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. We just need to have reasonable suspicion that a crime might be being committed. That can be something like somebody walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning, area where there's been a lot of burglaries or thefts. We can stop and detain somebody based on reasonable suspicion under Graham versus Connor. And then from that detention, we can try to establish probable cause to see if we can do a search or effect an arrest. And then Terry versus Ohio, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the term stop and frisk. That's what establishes our authority to stop and frisk. If we have reason to believe that somebody might be armed or carrying a weapon, then we can detain them for the purposes of a pat-down search, also known as a Terry search, based on Terry versus Ohio.
I haven't heard of those cases since law school. So thank you for that.
That law enforcement's responsibility. So the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederacy and the Constitution all share a common theme. Protect the people from tyrants and despotism. Law enforcement officers are given authority to act in such a manner if left unchecked. The Ninth Amendment, the enumerations in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people, which means just because it's not listed in the Bill of Rights or in the Constitution, it doesn't mean it's not a right. And then the 10th Amendment, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, meaning if the Constitution doesn't say that the states can't do something, the states can do it. And if the states don't do it, those rights fall to the people. So if there's not a law on the book saying that something is illegal, we cannot take action based on our personal feelings or how we feel on a certain matter. And so this comes into play most recently and most commonly. Bullying is a big thing. It's kids are getting bullied, or people are getting bullied, or they're getting messages and stuff that they don't like, or they're getting picked on, and parents are understandably upset, understandably angry, and they want something done, and they want the police to do something. And it's until the legislature passes a law saying it's illegal, we can't tell something they can't do and do something. They still have freedom of speech. They still have their rights, and we can't infringe upon their rights without a specific law to point to say, no, you're in violation here. Any questions?
Any questions for Chief up here? Any questions for Chief out there? Chief, great job putting it together. It's nice to always review some of those things, and make sure that the citizens understand that we're looking out for them, as what obviously you are. I know you are. Anything else you guys want to add, or we'll move to the next thing? All right, well, good job, Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chief.
We'll go on to the consent calendar. Anyone want to pull 2 through 6?
Yes. I need to pull number 2.
2? No? No. Okay, we'll pull 2 and we'll vote on 3 through 6. Want to go through the vote first, or would you?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to,
Make sure there's no public comment, please.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Online? Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent calendar items 3 through 6.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Number 2.
There is an error in there. Number 15, it states that I seconded Mayor Pro Tem's motion. I did not.
Oh, yeah, that was,
I believe it was Councilmember Stroman that seconded that, but I didn't have the chance to go back and look.
Okay. I'll make that correction. Thank you.
No problem.
any other,
We'll verify.
Yeah,
I'll listen to.
I just want to make sure that that's the will of the council.
yeah, we definitely want to make sure it's correct, I
Take
think.
a look at it, and if it's correct, then we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Anyone have any objections to that?
Please do so.
All righty. You okay with,
Frank, do we just wait to approve those minutes till the next meeting?
Yeah, it'll get thrown on the consent calendar. I want the minutes to be approved at a meeting
okay,
after they come back, just so I've had enough issues go sideways when everyone assumes they're, so not that it would happen with this council, but I think it's just good form.
makes sense.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Good catch, Councilmember Kay.
Thank you.
Staff communications and updates next. Okay.
Nothing from me.
I have the budget tonight, but that's it, so I'm kind of waiting for that.
Okay. Trevin, you didn't have anything?
Oh, no, yeah, nothing from me.
Okay. Chief, you have anything other?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
So it was requested to kind of look at the data for traffic on First Street by hour. I was able to pull the data, and there are significant issues with speeders on First Street. It is something that we've kind of known about for a while. We go out to address it. We work traffic due to visibility. When we're out there, people aren't speeding, and generally when we're working traffic on First Street, it's more of a visibility, and we're doing stop sign enforcement. When we're out there with radar, people just aren't speeding, but there is a issue with speeders. It's not on this graph. It took me a bit to really parse out the data and get actual speed by hours, or yeah, the actual speeds by hours. So for example, on here, it's 9 o'clock. I believe the calibration on the radar trailer is a couple hours off. I think that's going to be more the 7 to 8 time frame when school starts, because that's when we see the spike in speed. And at that time, so in the 9 o'clock hour on yours, there are 1,932 vehicles over a 13-day period, which averaged 257 per day just during that hour. 500 of them, or 941 of them, were speeding. 500 were going between 1 and 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, which is kind of an acceptable margin of error. 342 we're going 6 to 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, which is 17%. And then 99 or 5%, we're going 11 or more miles per hour over the speed limit. And that calculates out to an average of 13 per day during that hour, going 11 miles per hour or more over the speed limit.
And this correlates with the school time?
It correlates with the school time, but the biggest jump in traffic and speeders is actually at around the 5 o'clock mark, which would be the commuter traffic, the people coming home from work. And that at that time, there's let's see, there is a little bit less traffic, but the percentage of speeders is up to people going 11 miles per hour or more is 5%, almost 6%. 15 per day, and then, or 16, 15 per day during those hours, and 15 and 16, so 31, 32, round up 32 vehicles during those 2 hours of commuter per day that are going 11 miles per hour or more over the speed limit.
And you think that that's something that we can game plan a little bit better? Or do you think that we're hitting it as best we can currently with the staff we have?
I have personally sat out there for like 2 hours working radar, and the fastest I've clocked anybody going over the speed limit is 6. When we're out there and we're working radar, people aren't speeding. There's not really a lot of spaces where we can work traffic, work speed enforcement over there. We can sit there and work it, but traffic will slow down, which is beneficial, but there's not going to get any tickets out of it.
What about the fake guy in the car?
I was
A little dummy guy?
I was actually thinking that sounds like a great job for Officer Geck. There's a lot better places for him to hide out there.
He is on the motorcycle. He gets speeding tickets out there.
Yeah.
He's like one of the only people that, well, when Carl was working on the motorcycle, he was able to get speeding tickets there too.
Yeah.
So Geck and Carl.
In that time frame that you're talking about, I think that kind of lends to what Councilmember Stroman, was talking about, the passer through, not necessarily our residents speeding down First Street, but the people that are using our surface street rather than using 120 in McHenry. I think it kind of lends to that idea.
Yeah.
So good opportunity possibly for us to deter people from using our surface streets as well, I would think, if we can make that happen with staffing.
Yep. And then one of the other things that was brought up is I became curious because I was told that we get a very small percentage of traffic fines, but I've never really actually done the research and looked it up. And so it's quite, so for example, a speeding citation, we get 25%, we get roughly 25% of the base fine for traffic violations, which on its surface sounds good. You're thinking $230 speeding ticket, we get 25% of it. We get 25% of the base fine. The base fine for speeding going 1 to 15 miles per hour over the speed limit is $35.
So we get $7.
We get $8.75. And so there's $40 state assessment penalty, $28 county penalty assessment, $20 DNA penalty assessment, $20 court penalty assessment, a 20% state surcharge of $7, an EMS penalty assessment of $8, a court operations fee of $40, a conviction assessment fee of $35. So of a $233 speeding ticket, 198 of it are special fees that go directly to their special funds, and we get a small portion of the base fine, which for a speeding ticket is $35.
Everybody gets a piece and we get a gallon and a half of gas.
Well, no, we actually
Well,
get,
I think, in the long run, it's, I guess, nice for that to help the coffers a little bit, but bigger picture, I'm looking at it more from a safety standpoint.
Right.
So
I agree.
keeping people from running over a kid or something.
It was something that was brought up, and I knew the answer, but I never actually researched it myself. So I just wanted to make sure that I was accurate and to see what the actual math was behind it. And that was
not necessarily a big windfall, but it's maybe a better windfall in the safety category.
State gets a lot.
You said that was $235, chief? Or
So
230?
total fine is $233 for a speeding ticket. $35 is the actual fine for speeding. And then there's $198 in penalties and fees that are like state fees and county fees.
Now, is that put on by the state legislature? Is that how those extra fees get added on,
Yes.
or by the voters?
Oh, my guess would be state legislature. I don't,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, I'm not entirely certain, but I think
Okay.
they're just regulatory fees passed by legislation.
Chief, just curious, of that, since I know you like to nerd out on data, what would be the cost to the city of Escalon to have that officer pull that individual over and spend the time to write the ticket and follow back up with the admin? Like, I guess what my question is, the city would be spending roughly $60 to write an $8.75 ticket.
Yeah, well,
Higher.
just the ticket, you got to think if the officer is really fast, they can do a stop and write the ticket in 10 to 15 minutes. So you got 15 minutes the officer's time, and then he's got to write all of the information on it. You got to kind of write a summary on your citation. So if it goes to court, you know what you can remember the citation. Then it goes to our records. It gets processed to our records. That's probably 30, 40 minutes. And then they got to input it into our computer system. So that would be the 30, 40 minutes. Then it's got to get sent to the court. And then if they contest the ticket and the officer's got to go to court, they get 4 hours of overtime for going to court on their day off.
So between $500 and $1,000 to write a ticket, and we get $8.75.
It costs the state nothing, but they get a lot.
Well, we get more than $8. We get the deterrent, right? Or a small enough town that a handful of tickets, I think you would see those numbers dramatically decrease. I don't think it's really about, I know we talked about potential funds, and this is just one street. We know that this is a problem on just about every surface street in town. McHenry, 120 being probably the largest, contributors to the greatest amount of speed or potential for danger.
Right.
But we hear it over on Deborah. We've heard it. We hear it on Yosemite. We hear it down First Street, obviously. I think the approach that we looked at, or at least talked about, which was enforcement, may cost a little bit upfront, the investment in time from the city, but the outcome, the difference that we'll see in the reduction of speeders from a regular bout of enforcement, not just a one shot, right? Like, for an extended period of time, I think would dramatically reduce the amount of speeding that we see on our surface streets. McHenry and 120 are going to be a much harder animal to tame, just because those aren't our local residents. They're not going to hear about it as quickly. But well worth the money that we would spend for, what was the highest speed that you had going down First Street?
The highest speed.
100?
I saw 49.
Yeah.
No, there's
So more than.
I'm not sure if that.
So
So whenever we put the radar trailer out, there's usually one, maybe two that are going like at 80 to 90. I think one time on one of them we got someone going over 100, but I think those are people trying to set the limit.
To win?
Yeah, and so that's why I now have it blanked out when it goes over. I think I've got it blinking out at 50.
But with those during enforcement, I mean, if we're double, right, then we're reckless endangerment. If they're going 50 miles an hour in a 25, right, that changes the charge?
Not necessarily. So that would be when you're talking about reckless driving, it's a totality of circumstances. So going 50 miles per hour down First Street while school's out, 100% reckless driving. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning when there's absolutely no traffic, you would be very hard pressed to get a reckless driving charge out of that. It would just be a basic speed.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, just to your point, I don't think we're going to have much enforcement out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, but during those high-profile times that you identified with time, right? Beginning of school, end of school, and during the commute. Those seem like opportune times, and not just on First Street. Again, I think that the whole town needs to have a little bit more enforcement for speed. Just because nobody's been run over lately doesn't mean that it couldn't be in our near future.
Yeah. We routinely get complaints on First Street, California Street over by the, like California and Brennan over by Dent, Yosemite by Dent, Escalon Avenue. We get speeding complaints, McHenry, and we try to address them. And we can only be one place at one time.
Yeah.
And so what we'll typically do is we'll saturate an area, we do enforcement, we see the problem resolving in this area, and so then we move to another area. We don't have the staffing to saturate traffic patrol on 8 different areas of town where we're getting the biggest problems at the same time. So it just kind of, as we start getting complaints, as it starts to progress, we step up enforcement, and that will subside the issue hopefully before it gets to the point where somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, I think the most concerning bit of information that you shared is the correlation to the schools. And so, I mean, it's our aside from our elderly, right, it's our most vulnerable population. And those are the ones that probably, lack maybe the awareness or the amount of common sense required to navigate a street. So it puts them even more at risk. I think even more of that speaks to a bout of enforcement that's feasible based on staffing. And I get that. And I know in the last meeting, I'd hoped that citations were enough that it could potentially even, increase staffing at $8. That doesn't sound like it. But the amount of speeding tickets or potential speeding tickets that we have, I bet if we added that $8 up in a month for all the potential amount of tickets that we could get, could probably fund that temporarily, right?
Well, and so on First Street, we're not really writing speeding tickets because, as I said, getting people speeding when we're there is difficult. So when I work patrol, and kind of what I tell our officers to do is sit there with your radar gun. People have tinted windows, stop them for tinted windows. No front license plate, stop them for no front license plate. Because your person driving by, they don't know what the vehicle's being stopped for. They just know cops are out, cops are stopping people. And so we'll do a lot of stops, and that acts as a very good deterrent, but we're not getting a lot of violations that we're typically going to just be. I don't think we should just be hammering taxpayers with no front license plate tickets.
Yeah. I mean, there's a fine line.
Yes.
You're just trying to obviously mitigate the situation as best you can. So it makes sense. You don't want to be targeting. There's a fine line between the, perception of targeting, right? And
It's a hard comment. Sorry to challenge you there, Chief, but after the presentation and managing the constitutional equally, right?
Yes.
So violation is violation, and we should be enforcing those, especially in the sense of speeding. And I understand what you're saying. If you're sitting there, they're less likely to speed, but if it's possible to set up patrols, so whether it's on the motorcycle, I know they can't hide out. We're not trying to hide behind bushes and ambush people, but the town's small enough, the residence page has enough reach. Just a couple tickets, I think, issued for speeding will go such a long way in all of the areas that we just talked about, not just necessarily focusing on First Street, which obviously has an issue, but around all of our schools and main thoroughfares. It just seems to make sense. If we don't do anything about it, it's if you always do what you always done, you always get what you always got, right? So if we're not doing anything to step up or to mitigate this, I don't see it just stopping on its own.
Well, we do. That's what I'm saying. When we recognize a problem area, we step up enforcement in that target area, but we've got finite resources. Anytime you add resources to one area, you're pulling resources from another area. We've got 8 areas, I think 8 areas that we routinely get complaints, and it just kind of shifts. We'll get complaints in an area, we saturate the area, and we'll move to another area.
So how does that work? Is it just based on that complaint, that rotation, or is there something like scheduled that you have where we just kind of generally rotate those 8 common areas?
Whenever we start getting complaints, I will put out to the department, I'll send an email, hey, we're getting complaints in this area, step up enforcement's on this area. So the officers know what areas are problems. They've also got their calls for service they have to respond to.
Yeah.
They've got, every time they do a stop, there's stop data they have to go complete. They've got reports to write. So they've got ancillary duties. We don't have any dedicated traffic units whose sole job is to work traffic and write tickets. The closest we have is Get, but he still works patrol, and he can only work on the motorcycle when he's the second officer on, and then generally the other officer will be shagging calls. But if they need a backup officer, Get will be braking to back them up. So we don't have any dedicated traffic officers, and so when they have free time, these are the areas that they have areas that they should be hitting when they have free time, and then whenever we start getting complaints of speeders in a certain area, that's when I'll put it out that, hey, we need to step up patrol in this area, and then they'll step up patrols, and the traffic will slow, and officers don't want to be sitting out there doing nothing, and so they want to go find a spot where they're actually going to be able to work and take enforcement action and make stops and write citations.
Councilman Engel, you good?
Yeah, I can be good.
Anyone else have questions though?
I just have a suggestion, recommendation, and I'll keep it brief. Chief, thanks for the information. Very much appreciate it. Just a suggestion, because I received the complaint about First Street. I'm sure my fellow council members hear about speeding as well. But you have a job to do as well. And rather than inundate you with phone calls and voicemails and et cetera, just something to consider is the establishment of a general email box on the city's website, Stop Speeding at Escalon, cityofescalon.org. And if a resident has a complaint, they just send you an email and it helps you with traffic enforcement. That way you're not bogged down with many phone calls, gives us a tool to share with the residents, and I think it's a win-win. So just something to consider moving forward, but thank you for the information. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Go to Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just an update also for myself, following up from last council, was a little bit of the road condition and potholing on McHenry Avenue coming off of California Street. To give you a little bit of background, that portion has been left out kind of on purpose because of railroad permitting, flaggers and things like that were to work next to the track. With that being said, I think we can fill in some of the potholes, and I've got some call in to BNSF and Caltrans, and I want to personally wait until they're doing some kind of construction on those tracks or doing work on those tracks so I can maybe tag along on what they have so it doesn't cost the city as much or doesn't put the residents out, and then try to get some slurry on there at that time. But we will do something to make it not so potholy and so rough. But I just don't want you to give the impression that it's going to look nice, new, and black, because it will take a bit for that to happen. But it is definitely on the list, and we'll address it as soon as we can.
Sounds like a game plan. Any other questions for Public Works?
Everybody's dying to know. You get any owl activity?
You know what? I don't really feel like we're getting much at all, but we're still trying.
It's going to take
Here in a little
time.
bit,
I think we all know that.
Start baiting a little bit. So we'll see.
Maybe we put a couple of mice in there or something to get it started.
More common.
All right, then we'll go out to, or actually go to the city manager before.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple follow-up items from last meeting. The council did approve in the consent calendar, kind of a proof, which is in item number 5, a proof of the Danny Fox Memorial. There's indication of total cost, cost to the city, and cost to the family. So that is in the packet. I believe we have an exhibit. One of the items that was mentioned was the curb extensions or bulb outs at 4th Street. And perhaps that, maybe perhaps that, well, we don't have the exhibit, but one of the things we're looking at is additional striping at the bulb outs on 4th Street to make it a little clearer, kind of that those things are approaching as you are approaching them in a vehicle. Also, there's maybe some striping in the intersection that would help any of those that are turning onto the street. So we are looking at that based on comments at the last council meeting. 1st Street was also mentioned, and the turn movements and the lane assignments. So currently we have a straight and right turn lane, the southern lane, and then a left turn lane as the northern lane. And we are looking at, based on comments from the council, sort of making the straight be the northern lane with the left turn, so that there is just the right turn only when that is blocked with pedestrians crossing, that you have a little more throughput of the overall intersection. So we've done a mock-up exhibit. We think it looks good. We're now going to look at the signalization and the timing, kind of the inner workings of that intersection to see if that makes sense. So we're having our engineering and traffic engineering team look at that. We've shared that with the school for busing. Of course, we've shared it with police. They're looking at it as well. So all parties are looking at it, and we'll see if it does end up making sense, we can implement and execute that direction. And then the last one, during the presentation of the Measure P Advisory Committee, there was some thought that maybe funds had been lost or sequestered inappropriately. We felt very confident in the moment that there was nothing that we could see that had happened like that. So Linda and I have had since had a chance to talk with the Measure P committee member who indicated they had some of the audit and other data. It turns out perhaps that this was a council decision to pay back a loan from the Water Enterprise Fund to the general fund, and therefore money wasn't lost or inappropriately moved. It was a council decision back at that time, whether people agree with that decision or not. I think the bottom line is there was a request, and we'll talk about that during the budget. There was a request to use some of the Water Enterprise funds to assist the public with their utility bills. But essentially confirmed through the audit and other information that there was no lost funds. There was no, sort of inappropriately sequestered funds in that regard. So wanted to share what we had learned from the Measure P Advisory Committee in that regard. And that's all I have tonight.
Any questions for City Manager?
I have one brief one. City Manager, for the change in the orientation of the turning lanes at First and McHenry, when do you anticipate being able to make a decision on that?
It's really going to depend on how quickly it takes our engineer, but I don't think it'll be too much longer than a couple to several weeks. It's not something that's going to drag out forever. As I mentioned, police and the school district will also look at it. We want to make sure everyone's on the same page before we make that move. We also want to be as safe as we can. We know not everyone looks at the striping on the roadway, and we are all creatures of habit. And so want to make sure that we are appropriately messaging it, signing it, all of that, so everyone is aware of the potential change.
Only reason I'm asking the question is if a decision can be made prior to return of school. That's something that the El Portal staff can share at all of its back to school nights. The school district can make alerts about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate timing with what we know right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for City Manager? Sherry, you have any questions?
Well, Let's just go to public
Sorry,
comment.
public comment?
That's,
Well, for questions for staff. You have any questions for staff?
I don't have questions for staff. I just want to say,
so,
So
go
thank
to public
you.
comment.
I can't.
Okay, hold on one sec.
No,
We
no,
can
no,
just-
it's
we
fine,
just-
because we're about to get to public comment, I believe.
Yeah, I'm gonna do public comment.
Yeah.
But I technically have to do this first. Hold on one sec, Sherry.
Sorry.
Anyone online?
No.
No? All right, then we'll go to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address your state your name and address for the record. However, it is not required. Due to state law, action will be taken on an item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. Now we're at the matters from the audience, and Sherry, Ms. Hill.
And I'll come up to the podium this time instead of sitting in the back like last time. Thank you so much. First of all, that was a beautiful history summary. Since I'm a teacher, that really intrigued me. That was really good on the Constitution and the law, and that was a real good presentation. Thank you. Tonight, I just want to let you all know, probably already, most of you know this, but I'm just going to publicly tell you anyway. I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I know it's not, I'm not going there, I promise. But I do pray to him for all of you by name and your departments and for safety and for our beautiful community, because we have a beautiful community. And for the 5 of you especially, for tact and grace and truth and transformation. Nothing hidden, that everything, is before us and everything is exposed and nothing is hidden, and for the beauty of our community. So, you hear lots of negatives sometimes if people show up. But I'm into the positive. I'm into the letting you know that you're covered in prayer, and for your family members too, because some of you have family at home that, they're missing you while you're here and while you're serving. And you have to have a servant's heart to do this job. I don't care if you get a paycheck, you are public employees, you get a paycheck. I get that, but this is above and beyond, and this is service. And you all have exhibited to me, at least, a servant's heart. And that's definitely needed, and it's much appreciated in the city. So thank you, Abba, for this wonderful group. Keep your protection upon them, protection upon our servicemen that are out there putting their lives on the line, whether we think so or not. And for all the decisions that you make. May you make godly choices. May you make right decisions for our community. And may you be protected and sheltered. And amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm assuming no one online?
No one with a hand raised. We'll just remind those who may want to speak to raise your hand and we can unmute you.
Okay. Well, public hearings, we don't have anything. And so we'll go to administrative matters, number 7.
Yes, Mayor, this is our annual budget process. We will come back at a public hearing to update the fees. We are looking into that a little bit further. We've had some discussion about fireworks fees and other things that we just want to button up. But this is our annual budget process, and I will turn it over to Celinda for the presentation.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor and Council. We have one item 6, we kind of passed over in the consent calendar. That's the establishment of our appropriations limit. We find this every year. It's just kind of a utility item that we have to do for the state and for other reasons for our audits and things like that. Just a number that we use. And so based on the population of the city and the calculations that we have here with the CIP, it's about 21 million that the state says we're allowed to spend. We don't have anywhere near that to spend. So the city never even touches it. That's why it's more of just a little practice that we go through each year. But it is important and we are required to have that. So that's this one item that we have there. And we have the worksheet for that shows 1979 through 2027, which is kind of fun to see the historical numbers of population and all the different costs that we had. We started at about 1.1 million back in 78, 79, and now we're up to 21. So that's kind of an interesting read. If we get on to the budget, and I think I've got a clicker here, we are basically looking at 6.7 million. That's about 6% more than we had last year. And we can kind of notice a pattern from the previous years. We did the reset budget where we took out the 515,000 out of the budget and right-sized it. Then we performed that year and came up with a zero-based budget. We have kind of a zero-based budget light in the fact that we're able to get our revenues and expenses to match, but we are going through each line item as a summary. So maybe one line item is high, one line item is low, but for police in general, because that's, kind of one of our big spenders, it relates to where everything comes down to zero. So that's what we're looking at. It's something that we're working on to get line item by line item, and that's probably going to take about 5 years before we can finally get to where we can see, oh, okay, I can estimate exactly what we're going to spend on gas and everything else. So we'll work on that going forward. On our next page, let's see, is it going to let me go? Turn it on, it will. No, maybe not.
Worked earlier.
Do another one, I know. Sorry. All right.
So did the AC.
I know.
Don't have a 12-foot ladder.
I know it's coming.
No, it's not going to do it.
Justin.
Okay, next page if we can.
Now try.
Now try it?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we are going to go through this. We have our prior page. This is going to be a little clunky. It won't go a whole page. We have our all of our different people that we have here, everybody that's managers and everybody that's underneath them. We've got our next page here. Will it go? Yeah, there it goes. This year we did a one-page budget summary, something that we tried to do last year. Finally got it worked on this year with the city manager, and it'll be front and back. The front is real summarized. We have our revenues and our expenses, real high-level numbers, and on the back we've got a little more detail for those that really want to see all the nitty-gritty. 58% of the city's budget spent on safety. That's an important number, and we talked about our traffic speeds and all the different enforcement items that we have. Even though we aren't bringing in a whole bunch of revenue from these items, safety is really represented in every budget that we've had, I think. But 58% of it there. 12% of the money coming in is from Measure P. So that was a really great thing. I think we all know that by now. It's going to help fund things going forward. One of the great things I think about that too is it's going to help backfill the loss of base sales tax that we're seeing now. We have the whole consumer confidence, and when people are out buying things, they think they have a good handle on their finances and they're really happy to be out buying cars and big ticket items. We see with our national upsets that we have going on now, that type of confidence might wane. So even though we have some really great estimates as what Measure P and base sales tax might bring us in the next few years, we will really see the effects of that in the next 6 months. So if people decide, well, I don't think I'm going to buy that car this year. I'm going to wait and buy a whole new set of patio furniture next year because I'm just not comfortable with it. We'll see that in our sales tax numbers. So we have an estimate of the revenues that are coming in, and it is a conservative estimate. So I think that's going to be closer to what we're actually going to receive. And that is going to be the Measure P is probably our biggest area. Let's see, does that show me? This is so summarized. It doesn't really have that on here. We'll keep going. That's part of our 6.7. This is the page that we're used to from the previous year. It again gives us a little bit more detail. And we've got a small box, the green one, showing what our tax revenue is. That's really the big picture. We have two areas. We've got gasoline and food. So when people stop buying gasoline because they're not going to travel or they stop going out to eat, these two numbers are going to be heavy hit. And that's something that our city is a little more, it just has those two items. Everything else brings in less than half of the revenues that we receive. So we really are dependent on consumer confidence. And again, we show the safety. Measure P item down at the bottom box there. We're looking at the possibility of spending these dollars. We've got economic development, about 150,000. Replacing and maintaining equipment, that's something kind of new for us. We generally operate on something breaks and we fix it. This will allow us to have something of a savings account to grow. And then once that dollar amount gets to be sufficient, maybe we would back these numbers down. But I believe since we haven't replaced a lot of our automobiles and larger pieces of equipment in some years, we may use this for a while before that happens. We have the general number there, the 327,700. That really isn't an extra, but it's just an undesignated amount of money that council may designate for some other area. We may find that there's a great need for something that we're not thinking of now, but 3 months from now that pops up. Salaries, we know there's going to be an increase in salaries year over year with the current contracts. And then we have the 350,000 set for the UAL pay down. That is a good long-term to reduce the debts. That 350,000 is working really well for us right now. Now let's see, we have our objectives. Very close to what we had the prior 2 years. We're working on our gains that we've amassed from these past two years, and we'll just keep running forward with them. Minimizing our expenses is a big thing, and paying down the city debts. That's a way to make the city financially strong in the long term. Have our fund descriptions. These little areas here will show us where our revenues are, and I broke out base sales tax and our Measure P so that we can see what their percentages of the budget are, and pretty much how important the taxes are, that 46.5% of our revenues. And then we can start seeing, okay, well, who's spending it? And down at the bottom, we can see police and the code enforcement, streets, planning, building, engineering, all the different areas and what they're spending. We have our little dollar bill graphs that are kind of fun to look at too. We can just see flat out $57 goes towards safety of every 100. So that's kind of fun. Up top, we're actually able to see, we have our current budget, what our target is right now as of this printing, which was 513, what our current interest savings is for the year that we're in now. We've saved about 700,000, which is great. We'll just keep doing that. UALL worksheet. So our unfunded accrued liability for CalPERS. By us paying that $350,000 down each year with the kind of process that we have with them, we're able to turn $1 into about $1.72. I'd say conservatively $1.70, but last year, $1.72. I can't earn that money with investments. That's a really good bang for the buck. It'd be great if we didn't have this expense at all. So at the end of this, when this goes away, okay, we'll find something else to pay down. But right now, that's a great use of city funds. We have a lot of information here on the earnings and the account balances, the loan balances. The biggest number off of this page is that 22% of our payments are in interest. So that's a really high interest rate if you think about it, and that's the amortization cost. So you might have a loan for 2.5% or less, but the amortization cost, if you figure that out, we're paying a lot. So by spending any surplus monies or surplus budget monies to pay down a debt, you can see where that's going to drop those expenses in future years and just make the city that much stronger. That's kind of the focus of this whole, besides just the information. We have here, this one here, if people had personnel cost questions or you wanted to know, I think what do we have? Services and supplies, we can break down by department or by cost center how much of the budget is being spent. Lots of information on that page as well, but that breaks all that out if someone wanted to know that. Our strategic priorities and what we're hitting, again, public safety and fiscal stability and economic development. All these things go hand in hand, growing money, preserving money, and providing services for the city. Infrastructure too, all the stuff that Justin wants. So we have details here for all the different accounts. And if someone wanted to go through and find how much we spend on gas, how much we've spent on, I don't know, insurance, you can go through and find each line by line if there was something you wanted to see. We also talked this year and next year also about the budget surplus. Last year, we were able to pay for a lot of the different equipment things that we needed. This coming year, we'll have a budget surplus. I'm expecting it to be around the $400,000 mark. Again, as we go through in the last month or so, purchase everything that's needed, paid. We got another big loan, I think that comes in June that we make the payment on. We'll get a better idea if it's 415 or 380, whatever it is, but it's going to be around that $400,000 mark. Next year, it won't be quite as high because we'll have a better idea of how much revenues we're going to be receiving for Measure P. So that's where that difference comes in. We've got more investment money and more Measure P money than anticipated last year at the same time. Those two things, thankfully, are more than we knew. Measure P being new and the investments are doing well. We just had one that called early. It was a long-term investment, and we were able to make about 10% on it. So we're doing well in that area, even though we have to be very frugal and very small investments. Our Oak Valley Bank partnership is working well for the city. What else? So there's that one. Sales taxes, we talk about that a lot, being such a great amount of the city's income. Our expenses, we figure, are increasing about 6% each year. And those are the hard costs, things that we have to pay for: electricity, gasoline, all these different things that the city's using. These expenses are going up. Our investment income, it's about a 4% gain each year, which when we first started, that number was really dismal. I'm talking current numbers, not old numbers. That's really quite large compared to when we first started a few years ago. We do see that going forward into 2031, 32, there's going to be a delta between what we're earning, what revenues we're receiving, and our expenses. So by paying off some debt or somehow reducing expenses, if there's another idea, I'd love to hear it. But that's one of the ways that we can get those expenses down, and it will close that delta for us, hopefully before it's 2031, 32 numbers like I've got here. So here's our sales tax forecast. Base sales tax dips a little. It's pretty much stagnant throughout into 2032. Measure P, they have a graph for us, but they don't have enough data to base it off of. So that's why it looks so funny. We just got a flat line all the way through. We'll see what actually happens in this next year. The top 100 tax areas are gas, online purchases, fast food, DMV fees, all these types of things. So we want people to feel comfortable, confident, and be out spending in the city. And then we've got our general fund expenses. We had revenues before, here we have our expenses. So this is pages and pages of this. It'll go through what our estimated budget needs are for line by line, and we can see what we had in the prior year just for context. So is there any questions or any area anyone would like me to expound on?
I don't have any. I don't know if the dais does. Anyone? It's a pretty thorough.
Can you tell me how much we spend on paper clips?
No, but it was less than we spent last year. The office supply category had gone down a little bit. And these are kind of the things we're always looking at, is where can we cut some. The first year and the second year, we were able to cut big items. So we were able to cut $700 a month off of this bill or something. Now we're going through those same invoices again, the same vendors again, and we're only able to pull off maybe $75, $25, $35. But I always get excited when I find something big that I can cut out. I'm like, yay, but it's all.
I love that a sarcastic question nets that kind of response.
Well, I'm always looking for something that I can cut.
I know you are.
If we need it and it's valuable, great. Let's spend money on it. But if it's not, get rid of it.
Sounds like a game plan. I think you're doing a great job getting this so much easier to read and understand for not only us, but also the public. So it's much appreciated.
You're welcome.
There is one piece of direction that we're hoping to get through the council, and we will pull up a slide here in a second. Celinda has, of course, done a great job over the last 3 budgets. We have had balanced budgets in all 3 years. You will see this year, our revenues and expenses are about $400,000 more than the prior year. And that really does speak to our costs. Our costs are continuing to rise. We are in a good moment right now where we have more Measure P revenue than we anticipated originally. And that is why we're seeing that cost in revenue. But we do expect that to taper off. And as you saw in the charts, we do expect over the next several years for sales tax and Measure P to plateau or decline a little bit. We are already seeing that in our general sales tax.
The big caution I would have is we realize that Measure P came from the taxpayers, and they're, we don't want to have to go ask them for more money a couple of years down the road. So it's really important, I think, for the public as well as us to understand that even though there might be a little extra money there, it's not necessarily something we need to be full bore spending. I think we have a few things coming down the pipe, potential recessionary things. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, then we're in a good spot, right? Once that clears, then, the road hopefully will be a lot more clear, I think. But just something that I wanted to kind of put out there, just make sure.
Yeah, I agree. The primary thing for Measure P was to maintain city services, and that's what I think we're doing, including police. As our costs continue to increase and our revenues plateau, there's eventually, as you see in this chart, there's going to be that, the crossing of the other way. And that's why this council in particular has focused on economic development. We've done over the last 2.5, 3 years, everything we can to reduce costs as much as possible. And now we, through economic development efforts, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? But through economic development efforts, hope to increase revenues, not on the backs of taxpayers or ratepayers.
And that's kind of how I see it too. It's a stop. In my mind, it's a stopgap to allow us to get this other game plan implemented, which allows us to then get the sales tax bases that we need around here to not have to ask the taxpayers ever again for money, in theory.
I'll respectfully disagree. I do have some comments as far as that money is concerned. So just so that I'm clear, there's $400,000 that was roughly a surplus from the Measure K funds. And then there's, you guys should smile because we're going to have fun right now. And then there's 300 and, I'm sorry, I wrote it down. $327,000 miscellaneous funds out of Measure P for the upcoming fiscal year. There is potential for recession, but just about every year of my life, I've heard there's potential for recession. So the way that, in my opinion, to actually hedge against that is to really double down on our economic development and really force that hand to ensure that we have funds coming into the town rather than kind of sitting back and waiting to see what happens. So with that approximate $700,000 surplus, this is just a suggestion. We don't need to necessarily go back and forth about it. I'll put it out there so it can be heard. Maybe there's better options, but this is kind of what I think for that $700,000 that should be spent right now. 10% of that should go into a savings account for like a rainy day fund. 20% of that should go to beautification into our parks, which is kind of what we also promoted during the Measure P. 5% of that should go to a police retainment incentive. So the folks, we talked about that during Measure P as well. If we can get a police officer to stay maybe 3 years, they would get a $5,000 retainment bonus after they completed their third year. I think we have several officers that could potentially qualify for that. And if we do end up doing some additional hiring, I mean, that leaves you about $35,000 at 5% to work with some type of retainment bonus. 5% towards our opportunity funds. We can come back to that if we need to. 10 additional percent towards business development, but I have some more funds to add to that. 10% towards the CalPERS pay down, 10% towards paying down the city debts. And where I really think our future and potential for additional economic development in town is really helping the infrastructure come along for Liberty Business Park. I was really excited to see that the barn got opened and there's potential for things to happen on that side of the 120. What an opportune time, in my opinion, to really spark that discussion and push businesses to develop in that corridor so that we can hurry up and take advantage of the potential tax revenue that's out there. We know that a development like that could take several years. So if we kind of sit on our laurels and wait, and then we come up with a plan that's, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, it takes another 3 to 5 years to develop. We're talking over a decade till we actually start seeing revenue come into our town, and we need it now. But we can see the flattening chart that was put out there showing that there's a decline in our tax base. If we don't do something about that, that's the trend that we're on, and we are going to have no other choice but to go back to the people and say, we need more money because contracts are coming up in another 2.5 years. Gas is going to go up. There's 6% increase, as you were saying, kind of like cost of living expenses. Maybe that's the wrong term that I'm using. But again, just my opinion. I figured I had to throw it out there. I think that we need to spend the money. Taxpayers put it out there. Let's put that money to work. There should be a little bit, for a rainy day fund, but we do have some built in there as well.
I think you misunderstood what I said, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Obviously, economic development is the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
The stopgap is that money that helps us to get to that spot. I'm saying we got to be cautious with that money. Don't just go spending it willy-nilly. I think we already have a game plan to get into that Liberty Business Park that sounds pretty sound. And I probably can't talk
I don't
about
believe that we do. Do we have a plan going into Liberty Business Park?
a loose plan that I believe that I don't know if we can speak with it right now about it, but I think there's some, good ideas as far as spending some of that money like you're talking about.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
To get into that
We could
area.
spend some money to help them out.
I think that there's a logical direction there, but I think my overall opinion is that we got to be reserved about it. Don't just start saying we got all this money, so let's just start spending like crazy.
Yeah.
Because that's the number one problem
I think that's the part where I respectfully disagreed, is we should spend the money.
Well, I'm not
and
saying-
all of it.
I guess what you're not, maybe, okay, well, maybe you just want to spend all. I just think that being cautious about where you're spending it and how you're spending it is very important.
I would agree with that 100%.
So if we're spending it just to spend it, that's a problem for me. If we're spending it in a direction that's going to benefit the community in the long run, so we're not having to ask the taxpayers for money, which is what I think is the ultimate game plan, then I have no problem with
Just
that.
kind of vague statements out there, previously, and I think that's where my disagreement came, right? I think that there needs to be a plan, not just a hope and kind of a wait and see attitude. And maybe that's not what you meant, but that's the way I interpreted it. And if I interpreted it wrong, my apologies, but I do believe we need to put the money to work.
Okay, then you just don't misunderstand. I'm not going to get into like extreme detail on every little thing, but I do think.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, Councilmember Engel, can you run through those percentages for me one more time?
Yes. 30.
I want to write them down.
70, 10% for savings, 20% for beautification and parks, 5% for police retainment incentives, 5% opportunity funds, 10% business development, 10% CalPERS pay down, 10% city debt pay down, and 30% investment in the Liberty Business Park.
So while Councilmember Kay is writing those down, those are all really good ideas, Councilmember Engel. I only have reservation on the Liberty Business Park one, only purely from the standpoint that, honestly, I want to see what the guy sitting right in front of you is going to do for economic development. If he comes before council and has a whale and says, hey, council, I've been talking to these developers and they're willing to come here, but we need to improve the infrastructure to Liberty Business Park, then I think it's a wise investment. My
question to be, where else would this whale go? What other property here in town has the potential for a business to develop?
Well, there are other opportunities around town.
Not for a whale, not for a large, we're talking a small retail establishment or something like that.
Well, so I'm not opposed to those ideas. My point is that if we spend those monies right now to take the infrastructure over there, the only the only entity that benefits right now or in the next 6 to 8 months is Weldway. And Weldway,
Well, that's not true. That just
can
depends
you
on how
please
it's
let me
structured.
finish? Please
No,
let me
because what
finish.
you're saying doesn't make sense. The way that it's structured, it would be determinant of what that actually looked like. So if you were to give all the benefit to Weldway, then yes, they would. But if it wasn't structured in a way that they received all the benefit, then it wouldn't.
So Weldway signed a contract or signed an agreement with the city that they are responsible within 5 years to extend the utilities over to Liberty Business Park. They signed that agreement. Now, we're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but now what you're saying is that the city council would fund some of that development and thus reducing that risk or reducing that liability off of that agreement from Weldway. Is that a fair statement?
Not necessarily the way that it's structured. I mean, the money could be used in advance with payback or deferment to still make sure that the city gets the funds, but it's a way to incentivize getting some growth here. If we wait for their 5 years and then we have to farm somebody out, we wait another 2, and then it takes another 3, we're a decade down the road with zero change in tax base. We need something quickly. The town, if we look, Escalon has always done what it's always done, and it's stayed just the way it is. And I understand there's a large part of it that is great just the way that it is. But we want to have additional coverage for our police. We can't do that on the tax base that we have. We want additional parks or services or grow our rec department. We can't do that based on the revenue that we have. We want quality folks to come in when we need new hires. That takes money. We don't have the budget to do that if we don't quickly increase our tax base. These charts that are put out there that are so depressing, I don't know if we can pull that back up. That's our truth. That's what's going to happen. So, and I don't need to go back here and argue back and forth with you. It was just an idea or suggestion. I hope that it at least sparks a conversation that can come to some form of movement so that there is a benefit to our town, because that's really my intent.
Well,
how can we bring benefits?
I would tend to, not to interrupt you, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, I agree with you 100% with the Liberty Business Park. I do think that's where, if we're going to spend concerted effort in funds, that's where you'd be looking. But I guess what I'm looking at is we are allocating funds to a lot of those things in my opinion, that you've mentioned, aren't we? Like we're paying down the unfunded liabilities, where monies have gone to the police. It's not like we're not doing those things. I do think that, I guess where maybe I misspoke and maybe I didn't come out clear with that, is that our spending should, in my opinion, be focused towards economic development. But being cautious with that money and being able to not just spend money on things that aren't if we look at needs and wants, right? I would say Liberty Business Park is turning into a need versus a want, because it's the ultimate long-term end game for us to have sales tax base long-term. So I 100% agree with you there. In some of these other areas, those are, in my opinion, could be wants, not needs.
No, I can respect your position. Again, a suggestion on my part strictly to hopefully start a discussion and have some benefit towards our town.
I appreciate the input on it.
Mr. Mayor, can I please finish my thought?
Yeah, go for it.
I appreciate all of those ideas, Councilmember. I think they're really great ideas, all of them. And we can certainly explore that over the course of the next fiscal year. The point that I was trying to raise is that I agree with the mayor and I agree with you where you're saying that we need to focus on economic development, driving those sales tax revenues up. My point is that what can our development services manager do to ensure that the money that we're putting forth for Liberty Business Park, we're actually getting a return on that investment, and we're not spending millions of dollars to extend the infrastructure across the street and then it just sits there. And maybe that's a push. Maybe our development services manager feels a push. Oh, well, I better get on this and start marketing Liberty Business Park, but I want to make sure that it's a wise investment, that we're doing that instead of spending $5 million extending the pipeline over there, and then it's dormant in the ground for the next 15 years. That's my concern.
I can appreciate where you're coming from. I do. But I think sometimes you can't live life without any risk.
Of course.
Sometimes you have to take low-grade risk, calculated risk, in order to get to where you want to be. And so I think what Councilman Engel is pointing towards is taking that low-grade calculated risk. I don't want to speak for you, but
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. The next slide, page 71, shows the bleak outcome of our sales tax base.
Yeah.
This is my call to action. This is what happened during COVID, that we saw that big spike, because that's out of the norm. And what do we do to get that on an uphill trend? It doesn't have to be Liberty Business Park. I understand we are making headway, with economic development conversations. What can we do to boost that? What else can we do? How can we throw some funds at it to help it move? What incentives can we do? What deferments can we offer to developers? Like there's lots of conversations, and just my opinion that we need to accelerate those conversations to try and get something to happen, or else 2.5 years from now, when we're having discussions again about contracts, gas might be $8 then. 3% might not be enough. The ask could be, we need an 8%, raise to live. How do we do that? With our current base, we don't. And then what do we look at? We start looking at layoffs, reduction in force, reduction in service, right? We see that our town isn't equipped to handle that type of crisis. And so if we don't act, all these other towns are going to steal our money. They're going to take it. And we're going to stay just the same size that we are, with a dwindling service force to our own people.
I think you're both kind of pointing in the right direction. I just think Councilman Stroman's looking at it from a more cautious approach, with Trevin being involved. Obviously, Trevin's going to be involved with that process. I do think when you take the idea that is being thrown around by Councilman Engel, and you put it together with what you're talking about with Trevin, I do believe my gut that that's the right decision. I do.
I think it's a
For what it's
win-win,
worth.
because
Mayor, if I may, I don't want to
Yeah.
interrupt. Did you have a thought?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
My intent wasn't to tell the story that the sky is falling.
No,
Intent was to say, this is what's coming down the pipe.
well,
So,
reality.
and I
is
know
reality.
we have time. We have time to turn things around. I think, and there's really even not that much to turn around. When we started this 3 years ago, getting the budget right, getting our investments right, our investment money is another $1 million a year. It was next to nothing previously.
I guess
So
what
we're
I'm
going
at,
in the right direction.
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess what I'm getting at is just echoing that idea that we don't have all this money to spend. So it doesn't look like, hey, we have all this money. We really have to be spending this money in a concerted fashion.
Right.
Part of that is doing things like Councilman Engel's saying. In other words, when people see that money, they're not like, well, you need to build a whole nother park over here. We got all this money to have fun with.
It's a great conversation to have. We have the problem of what are we going to do with it?
Yeah,
As
I
opposed
just
to
think we need
don't
to
have
be.
enough to do anything with.
Yeah.
So it's a great problem to have, to brainstorm these things. Where can it be best used? And I think there's going to be several different things. My story might be just a little too dry in, we're going to be losing $900,000 at some point. If we do nothing to change it, yeah, that's what we're going to end up with. But
Yeah.
I think there are things we can do to change it by reducing core debt, by being smart with our different investments that we're making, by putting money into areas that is going to come back to the city. So I think that's a great topic we can
Well, like
expound on.
Councilman Engel's saying, if we don't invest in the, the core idea of business, then ultimately we're going to repeat the same cycle. And he's 100% right. He says that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious to hear what Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Kay have to say. I just have one question for
What do you guys have?
Finance Director. To Councilmember Engel's point, Are we able to do an autopsy to figure out why there was such a spike from Q3 of 21 to Q3 of 2023? I mean, I know it was COVID, but what was the spike that people were just ordering online and are not able
Everybody
to?
was at
Had a
home getting
different-
free checks and spending those free checks on online purchases and DoorDash.
Different tax base
Yeah.
too. I mean, we had another business here in town, a couple more businesses here in town that are no longer here. There's a couple, you almost can't even look 4 years back and say, oh, let's compare, because it's a different animal 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so now we have a leaner animal that's going forward with more investments, the Measure P money. And that's, you pretty much doubled right there. You've got $1 million worth of investments and 1.4, 1.6 in that Measure P. So hopefully that Measure P and the tax money continues, even though the base is dropping, that Measure P is going to backfill. So it's great that we have that.
Well, I have the
Real quick, during COVID, there was a lot of discretionary spending. Tom Hillier Ford had very, very good years. They increased, 40% in their revenue generation, tax generation to the city. I believe in large part, much of that is Tom Hillier Ford, who had very big years and just a lot of discretionary spending in the city.
To that point, he was selling Amazon fleets. So the online purchases had a direct effect on our town because he was selling fleets to the very person that was making those sales.
And Mr. Trevin, please understand my comments. I'm not trying to put any pressure on you. I'm just trying to.
Sure.
I am.
Yeah, I am too. Sorry.
We want to make sure though that we're really driving economic development, and I mean, we see it. We see the numbers. We need your help. We need your expertise. So go get it.
Yeah, and typically like an 18-wheeler, the more load it has, the straighter it drives.
Okay.
I got it, Trevor.
Prepare for a flurry of emails.
I got it. That was too philosophical for a budget meeting.
Well, I'd like to believe that this dais up here and the staff that we have will figure out a good trajectory for the community. I know, obviously Councilman Engel's been given a lot of thought. I know I have. I know all the council members have up here. And I think, my personal thought is you got your head on straight, so to speak. You're got a real good.
Mr. Mayor, above the whole thing, I'd like to hope that at least continues that conversation, right? So that we don't sit on it and say we come back to, that we make it a priority to revisit it and determine how those monies are spent moving forward. And that's at your discretion.
If I could possibly get a word in over here.
No.
Oh, Councilman Kay, what would you like?
That is exactly my point, is that I agree, not necessarily with your percentages and where you want to send it. There are some great ideas in there. I think that our unfunded liabilities is probably the most important thing that we can do, with any additional dollars that we have. I think that the investment in Liberty Business Park is something that we definitely should be doing. But most importantly, I don't think that we should allow these funds to just sit in the bank account and disappear into the general fund because we didn't have a conversation about it. And where else are we supposed to have a conversation than the five of us talking up here at this dais? So that said, Mayor Pro Tem, have anything to say on the subject?
Sure. I think this deserves a conversation on when we have additional funds and where we're going to spend them. I think that was the point of us trying to start the budget conversation a little bit earlier so that we don't get to this point today trying to pass a budget and looking at our additional funds and having this conversation. It would have been nice to have this kind of before us a little bit earlier so that we could have this and actually have this as an agenda item and start talking about it. But do appreciate, we have the budget workshops, and unfortunately we haven't had too many people come in, but I'm hoping that grows so we can get a little bit more of what the public is wanting to spend that on. I like this list. This is a very good list of things we probably should be focused. We are focused on, right? And so just the breakdown is what we're going to have to talk about, but I'm not prepared to spend 30% of it right now on the investment into Liberty Business Park, like today, right now. But I do like the conversation of where is the market? Like, what is the marketing plan right now for Liberty Business Park? If we had some bites, some talk about it in public, if that was out and that was a conversation being had, if this was being marketed and advertised to, I think we called it the big sharks, if this was out there and we started having that and someone's on the phone talking to these people and trying to get that, then maybe I'd be more motivated to spend a bigger, I think, what was it, 30% of
In other words, if you saw,
700. So,
if you saw there was a real direction there.
right, because
So
Yeah, I know what you're
I'm,
saying.
you know,
to that point,
yeah,
right now, what does he have to sell aside from a bunch of land that isn't for sale and no access to it?
and that's,
If we had infrastructure there, now he has something that, hey, I think that your business is expanding and you may want to take a look at this area. We already have the infrastructure in place. We can get you up and running that much faster.
but being prepared to put in the infrastructure along with that big shark is also, I'd like a little bit more security before moving forward and putting all that money in.
And my thought on the subject is that it feels very, very much like a gamble. But to Councilmember Ingles' point, where else? You know, if we're going to try and attract new businesses and large businesses, where else are they going to have the opportunity to build aside from there?
And I think a big part of this conversation is that we're not butting heads. We're actually going towards the same end. It's just how we want to get there and the order of which we want to get there and what we want to do in the meantime. I think that money can be used in a different way, a better way, probably making money for us somewhere while it's sitting around. But I do think economic development is one of our goals, and that is something that we should be focusing on. Not only Liberty Business Park, but there is that 120 thoroughfare that is all zoned for business, you know, that it's entirely empty, and that should be developed, or we should be looking at developers, and we should have that marketing, and people should know when they're looking to expand their businesses that we have a great opportunity available to them. Now, do I know of a lot of businesses trying to expand right this second offhand? No, but I'm sure they're out there. You know, I'm sure that there are some retailers. I mean, look at Riverbank. There's plenty of businesses trying to expand right now. So we just
had a
need to get,
development right there, and this council shut it down.
so we just need to get our marketing out there. And that's how I guess that's how I feel. And some of this money, yeah, I don't think 700,000 should sit around, if that's the number. Should just sit around and.
Well, I think
and
a
do
lot
nothing.
of that $700,000, not to interrupt you, but is already earmarked.
Well, no, I agree.
Right.
And there's already
So it's not
earmarked,
like
some
we
of
have
these things are
7,000.
gone. I think,
327 is general and 400 is the surplus, leaving, you know, a little over $700,000 that's unassigned.
and
Oh,
then,
yeah,
you know, we're
that's
moving forward, the highway beautification. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm kind of waiting to see how the Caltrans thing develops, because I want to make sure that we're integrating that development with our highway development as well to make it as successful as possible. But the economic development, we have recreation needs probably going forward, and have more space for our parks, but all of that is being worked on. So I think we're going in the right direction. I don't know, again, I don't know if I'm
One thing we should,
ready to just spend it on the bore and all of that, but it's going.
well, I'm thinking, one thing we just got to keep in mind too, is this is a revolving money thing, right? So we would be spending or allocating funds most likely from this particular budget. So if it didn't turn out 100% where you wanted to go, it's not like the town collapses because of it.
No, and
You know what I'm saying?
I'd love to look into what it would cost for us to advertise that piece of land for the appropriate developers, what that marketing campaign would look like, because something big like that might cost us a little bit of money to put that word out there, a little bit more than what we would think offhand, for us really to get the word out, that we have prime location for someone.
I'd like to have a little more in-depth conversation. I think what Councilman Ingles bringing to the table is a wise idea to really hammer down the facts and the specifics of where we want this money to go and flow as a group, since there's a little bit of, you know, breakdown in exactly the percentages, and we have a general trend in where we want to go, I think, but maybe we don't agree 100% on the little things. I think it would be wise to probably chew that over on an agenda item if we can.
And and if I may, Mayor, I was just discussing with the city manager that doesn't prohibit the council from moving forward and adopt the budget. I think the key is you have a balanced budget, you have a budget
Yeah.
that's not based on deficit spending. And those policy discussions can and should happen probably over serious. My point is it doesn't need to stop the approval of the budget tonight.
So just so I'm on the same page with you, Frank, if we pass the budget with the caveat of wanting to specifically earmark the 700,000 based upon a conversation at a later date,
Yes.
then does anyone on the council have issues with that? I don't personally, but
No, I actually kind of wonder if we should be having a special session of some kind
I agree.
to discuss this.
I agree.
Further.
We need to
Yeah.
treat that, well, let's approve the budget the way it is and then have a separate meeting, gain community input, talk to our partners on the Measure P committee and figure out, okay, what do we want to do collectively? I think, and I want to remind the four of us of something that's really important.
Are you excluding me?
I am. And no offense to you, Councilmember K. Guys, it's June 1st and we're talking about passing the budget. It wasn't so long ago that it was September and October and we were being presented with the annual budget. That's key. And that, Celinda, I'm going to call you out right now for that because we know, and I think now the community knows how hard you're working. And to have the budget to us before it's due is so critically important because the one thing that we have been stressing as a council is transparency. And to bring the budget, fully to us a month ahead of time is incredible. And we're not pulling late hours. And so thank you for everything that you did for this budget. Thank you to you, city manager. Thanks to all the department heads. It's June 1st for crying out loud, and we're talking about approving the budget, which is really awesome. So thank you.
hey, Councilman Engel, do you feel good with that? And Pro Tem, do you guys both feel okay with that? Have any issue with?
For myself, that was the intent, to have that conversation, to figure out how to allocate those funds. I didn't think it was going to disrupt the budget. I think the work that's been done there was good enough to get us to a balanced budget. We don't need to do that. The funds are earmarked, the 327, I think, are earmarked as general, and the 400 is surplus. So I don't even know if it necessarily needs to be separate. We just know that there's those monies in the kitty. Outside of that doesn't have a designation. It's not intended for a fund or a purpose.
I guess what I'm getting at is you feel good with us having, vote on this hypothetically speaking, say we pass it.
Yeah, no, I hope we do.
You feel good with a special meeting or discussion or however we do that?
Yeah, 100%. It needs to have a further discussion and action needs to be taken quickly so that we're not,
Pro Tem, how do you
wasting
feel
time.
on that? You feel good with that?
Yes, sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
Yes, I do. And I think that this month, well, we'll just see how this one moves forward. But when we have a surplus, this discussion should probably be had. So
Then, anyone else want to say anything before I go put out to the public?
With the caveat that we advertise and really try hard to gain community input. Post it on the city's social media pages, do a blast. We're talking about the community dollars, so we need their input. No offense to Sherry, she's here every meeting. I know she has great ideas, but we need more people to share ideas.
I think that before we put that out to the people, we need to sit up here and do our jobs and present something for the people, not just let a meeting go all willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Say we want slides on every corner and benches every 300 feet. I think we should do our jobs and find out what we said we were going to do with Measure P funds and what we promised we were going to do up here as a council, come up with solid, tangible ideas and present that to the community and let them hear what that is. And then they can have their, pros and cons session through that rather than just have another meeting that's going to lead to another meeting that's going to lead to another meeting.
That's,
Well, I would agree with you on that. Sorry.
No, and I just want to remind everybody, we did a very good job at advertising our budget workshops. That's what they're for. They are for the community to come in and air what, if there is a surplus, what they want to spend their money on. We've done that for this round, and not that this won't be advertised for, but we have done it, and we did get the feedback that we could get. We could get some more, maybe now they realize that not too many people showed up. But continuing to advertise, we are doing our job. We are advertising. We are giving beautiful workshops, or at least prepared to do so. And so, yeah,
And we
we'll
did
just
have the
continue what we're doing. There hasn't been a lack of.
And the
that
Measures
effort.
P committee has given us information on that too, as far as ideas. But I do think, I'll put it out to the public and I'll bring it back to the dais so we can keep the meeting moving, but.
Please.
I have something to say. Thank you for having the discussion and having the conversation and for bringing it up so that you can, I think it's a marvelous idea. Some of us did show up to the workshop, and I'm going to come from a personal point of view. Okay, if somebody comes to me and they ask me for financial advice, I know, shocker, they do. You can have a mortgage, you can have a car payment, you can have children that need to go to school, and I'm going to tell you how to get out of debt in 10 years, provide for your children to have education. You understand what I'm saying? Just along the lines that you guys are talking. So I did come to the workshop. Paying off debt, you're throwing away money if you don't pay off that debt. Every amount of money you pay in interest, you all understand this, you're throwing it away. So that's smart. Put a big chunk there, because that's money that you will then have in the future. That's smart money. Investing into your future is also, it's like investing into your kids. Are they going to go to trade school? They're going to go to college, but you need to have the money before you get there. You don't want to take a loan. That's stupid, right? It's throw away money, interest. So these conversations, I like what I'm hearing. Please get together, have something together, work these things out. You should have some in savings. I'm not an advocate of spending all of it because there is a rainy day. I also like the idea, Celinda and Jalen, when we had the finance, had mentioned, which I think is smart, and I think our state public schools needs to do this differently, is, if you don't spend the money next year, you don't get money. Well, that's dumb, because then we keep raising, and like the school district this year asked for more money. Better management. Putting money aside for future equipment that's going to fail, it's there. And if people say, oh, we have excess, no, this is for equipment. This is for upkeep. This is for maintenance. That's a smart. So those 3 areas, having something in a pool to fix something that breaks, having I guess 4 areas, savings, looking to your future, and paying down your debt. Because if you can get those things all working together, we are going to be farther ahead. And that's how I have to run my home. That's how smart people get out of debt and can pay off their homes in 7 to 10 years and drive cars without payments. And you see what I'm saying? It's smart money. It's using it smartly and wisely. So I appreciate the conversation. Go get them.
Online, you got anyone?
No hands raised.
No, I just make one last statement, then I'll shut my pie hole. I do think that we're all generally thinking the same thing. I just think that we might be just thinking it in different directions, or maybe not communicating it as well as we'd like to each other. And I'm probably at fault of that, more than probably anyone up here. But I do think if we collaborate and work together as a group, we can make this happen. And I think invest in the future, like Sherry's saying, be able to get our debt move in the right direction, and so that years from now, Escalon's thriving, not dying. And I think that is very attainable. I do. That's all I have to say. Anyone else have any?
Yeah, say it would be appropriate if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to adopt the city's fiscal year 2026, 2027 budget directly related to strategic plan, priority area number two. Oh, no, sorry, reading the wrong thing. Recommendation, adopt fiscal year 2026, 2027 proposed budget in the amount of $6,735,206.
I'll second that. Okay. Wait, who's got the second here? Pro Tem, you got,
That's fine.
you got the title, so you get it.
I don't think it's fine.
I'm joking.
That's,
Let's rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All righty. We'll go on to number 8.
Mayor, this is the second step in a two-step process. And if you wanted, you could take items number 8 and number 9 together. Again, this is not final decision. Final decision will come July 20th at a public hearing.
Then let's do both of them together unless there's a major objection up here. Oh, okay, then let's do that.
No objection.
Thank you, Mayor, City Manager. Tonight's actions are the second of 3 required steps to continue the annual assessment for the city's 5 special maintenance districts for 26-27, as well as the Proposition 218 process for Westwood Country Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District to increase the max assessment. Council is being asked to adopt a single consolidated resolution for the 5 annual assessments that preliminarily approves the engineering reports for all 5 districts and sets the public hearing for July 20th, 2026. Similarly, for item number 9, the council is being asked to adopt 2 resolutions. One resolution of intention that approves the engineer's report, declares intent to levy an increased assessment, and sets the public hearing and balloting procedures. The second resolution for item 9 is a Prop 218 ballot procedures, which formally adopts the rules for how the ballot proceedings will be conducted. For item 8, on April 20th, council completed step 1 to initiate the proceedings. And again, tonight is the second step to approve the engineer's report and setting the public hearing. Staff has implemented several improvements to increase clarity and public access this year. We've included redlined versions at the request of council of all the engineering reports showing year-over-year changes. We've provided detailed transaction summaries for year to date, showing exactly how the prior year assessment funds were spent on individual items. And we've also planned to send individualized mailers to every parcel that will explain the annual assessment levies, and we'll have a QR code linking to all of the documents you're receiving tonight that I mentioned. These changes support a more informed public hearing process and strengthen fiscal transparency. In addition to, in regards to item number 9, the district proposes new capital improvements at Swanson Park for a total estimated cost of $266,580. And the funded over both fiscal years 26-27 and 27-28. The annual assessment needed to fund those improvements exceeds the current adjusted maximum assessment rate, meaning it qualifies for an increased assessment under Prop 218. Because of that, property owner approval is required through a mailed protest balloting procedure, and the proposed assessment rate given the new capital requirements is $1,092.98. If approved by the property owners, this would become the new maximum assessment rate with a 3% annual adjustment. This concludes my report, and we have SCI Consulting Group who prepared the engineer's reports and the assessment methodologies online for questions. Thank you.
Any questions up here for Trevin?
Nope.
I just want to say that this is a vast improvement over the reports that I've gotten since being here. And I appreciate all the work that's been that's been done by you and by the team. So I appreciate it. Thank you. It's very clear.
I would echo that for sure. Anyone in the public? Sherry? Anyone online?
No.
All right. Come back to Dias. Any last thoughts or?
I'll just drive 2 points home. Based on council direction, as Trevin mentioned, increased notification to the residents. So we will have basically a mailer that itemizes out all the expenditures in each district. and helps them connect how their assessment is at the level it is at. They'll each get a mailer notifying them of the meeting and all of that information. And then the second item in Westwood Country at Swanson Park, we were able to amortize the construction costs over 2 years. So the total cost to the residents will be spread over a 2-year period instead of a higher, of course, rate over a 1-year period. We believe that was probably the preferred scenario based on council input and resident input. So we are able to do that, and that is referenced in this item.
Humor a motion?
Actually, I just have one quick question.
Okay.
Are we including this on the front page of the website so that if any members of the LLD can easily access this information?
So we have a page on our website called Public Notices, and it'll be listed on the Public Notices page.
Is there any way to make it more visible so that our residents don't have to drill down through countless pages to try to find the information? Just trying to find a way to make it easily accessible.
Yeah, it'll be one click down.
Yeah.
So they would have to click on the public noticing button on, I believe it's on the homepage.
We make a reference to that in the postcard, in the mailer that's going out, how people can access it. So trying to make it as easy and as transparent as possible so people will actually take the time to read it. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve agenda items. Is it 8 and 9?
Yes.
As presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay, it's passed. Go on to council communications, and we'll start with Councilman Kay.
I got a couple of things this evening. Didn't realize that we were at the end of this already tonight. Want to congratulate our graduates, all of our Escalon High and El Portel graduates. I don't think that we mentioned them at all in the last meeting, but definitely wanted to congratulate them while we were sitting up here. And then here's my other one that I've got. Sherry, you're the only member of the public out there, so I guess I'm going to talk directly to you. For years, my wife and my ballot shows up on the same day. And now that my son's a voter, his shows up on the same day as well. This year, my ballot didn't show up, and I thought that was kind of weird. And we had prior communication to this, but I had forgotten all about it by the time this actually happened. This is how my ballot came to me, along with everyone else sitting at this dais and every elected official in this entire state. And they sent us all of our stuff in one big thing. This is the envelope that you receive yours in. Mine isn't even glued because it's not necessary. They send it in this for us. This is my filled out ballot. And this is what they gave every elected official in the state of California. This is a secrecy envelope. And I can't stand anything that a government does that works for us, but for some reason thinks that they get to have special treatment. This really irked me. And like I said, we were given notification, but when I actually received it in the way that I received it, it really, really bothered me. Any elected official that voted for this and approved this needs to be voted right out of our state capitol. And with that said, I'm absolutely not using this. That is absolutely wrong. We are not above the citizens that we serve. We are supposed to be servants. And I just find it absolutely reprehensible that our state did this. That said, I'm done for the evening.
All right. That's the only thing you hate about the state?
I'll give you a lot more than that if you got a couple hours.
Yeah,
I'm just
need a couple days.
Okay, Councilman Stroman.
Sure. I won't rip up my envelope right here because I don't have it with me. It's already in the box. But yeah, just to kind of piggyback what Councilmember Kay said, congrats to all the graduates. Please stay safe this summer. To all the kids that are continuing school, stay safe this summer. be respectful of, if you have an e-scooter or an e-bike, please be respectful of our residents. So last meeting, council appointed myself and Mayor Pro Tem Walker to investigate some ideas regarding America 250. We are continuing those discussions. For full transparency, I had a family emergency and ultimately a death in my family that took me out of state for about a week. So we weren't able to meet, but we are talking and we'll bring ideas back to the council soon. The other thing that I was serious when I mentioned, look, it's June 1st. We just approved the budget. But so Linda, as much as we want to give you credit, it also takes a team effort from Chief to Justin to Trevin to Jalen and to all city staff. And I was thinking about it the other day, and the way that, at least the way I interpret how budgets were done previously, is that we're going to inflate the budget, we're going to inflate the budgets to what we think we need to have. And then at the end of the year, we're going to come out and say, oh, we have a surplus. And now it's kind of reverse thinking, and it's being lean and mean with the money, and thinking and having the forethought to think, okay, how can we keep the city running lean and mean, but actually work for the benefit of the people? And so I appreciate that so very much. And I appreciate all of your hard work, as well as every department head, city manager, even you, Frank. The only other thing that I want to address is last meeting, there was some discussion regarding the Measure P committee. And I took a beating for it. And quite honestly, Mayor Pro Tem was wrapped into that. I will say publicly that Mayor Pro Tem had nothing to do with that. She did not make any comments. And so if there's anybody that should be, if anybody should be upset with somebody, be upset with me. And the reason that people were upset is because I explained to a member of the Measure P committee that I really didn't appreciate how they stormed out of the meeting like a small child. And the day after that meeting, I received a phone call from that individual. I was in my work life and was on a separate meeting, and I asked to call Mr. Alves back during lunchtime, which I did, and he refused to take my phone call. And so, Mr. Alves, if you're watching, you obviously have my number, or please come to the next council meeting, because it's very important that not only me, but the entire council hears your ideas, because it's important to hear what you have to say. And so, but I just wanted to address that publicly, because Mayor Pro Tem had nothing to do with that. That was all me. And I mean, we're all doing this out of love for our community. And I understand that there are frustrations. I just stop, take a deep breath, and let's talk about this as adults. We're all here to listen. And so, and if things aren't being presented in the way, well, then let's figure it out together. We're all doing this together. And so we're all trying to represent the city of Escalon the best way we know how, including our members of the Measure P committee. That's all I really have to say tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Engel?
Yeah. I've been told from time to time that I can have a tone in my voice, or it can be condescending, or maybe I can sound a little aggressive when I talk. So I just want to say that, if that's the way I came across tonight, that definitely wasn't my intent. It wasn't to try and push my thoughts harder, or to try and convince somebody to think a different way. I can't really explain it other than when I get passionate about something, it can come out in my speech. So hopefully nobody was really offended. I don't go back and watch the meetings. I'll just have to rely on my wife, who watches them from time to time, to tell me if I was a jerk that night or not. So if I came across that way, that wasn't the intent. I really do want the best for the city and to see it thrive and survive. And in just uncertain times, I want to see us take action, and that can be the reason behind my passion from time to time. So hopefully that just sheds a little bit of light on somebody who may just hear me and say, that guy's a jerk. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm really trying to come from a position of trying to help. So that's all I have to say tonight. Thanks.
Pro Tem?
Sure. So I wasn't going to comment on the last meeting, and I appreciate when others get offended for me. I just wanted to say I didn't say anything during presentations, but that's because I don't say anything during any formal presentations. I've been taught that while formal presentations are being given, that I should listen intently with what the content is and save my questions and comments for the end. I appreciate the Measure P committee coming and giving our insight. Their job is to, during their time, reach out to the community, see what the community, take feedback from the community, see what they would like to possibly spend money, and give insight on Measure P. And then they come and report what the community has given to them. So I am very interested, and I commend the Measure P committee for giving their time to reach out to the community during this time, and appreciate both Ed and Gabby, who held her own up there and acted with the decorum as expected of a committee member. So I appreciate Measure P, and I apologize if it was taken in any other way than respect for a presentation being given on council. So anyway, appreciate it, and excited to spend the money of Measure P coming up soon. What I did plan to say was that our vote is tomorrow. You have an opportunity to practice your civil duty as a citizen. And God bless America. I love that we have the right here to give our votes. I did notice that we got this big packet while the rest of the family in my house did not. I had the opposite reaction, which was, why is not with all the money in California, why is not everybody getting all of these things in one mailer instead of 5 different mailers with information coming? This is very convenient. We have all of this money in California. Everybody should have clear communication on what they're voting for, and they should all be put together, and we should all get this. But it shouldn't just be us up here. It shouldn't just be elected officials or people that may be deemed as special by the state legislature. But on that note, please go out and vote. If you have not already, practice your civil duty. And I think I will just leave it at that. God bless America.
I think, Councilman Engel, I think you're overthinking it. I think you do a great job. I like the passion. I think it shows that you care. Same thing with you too. I think, don't overthink it. I think when you're put on the spotlight up here, everyone tends to kind of look at everything you do and kind of put it under a microscope. So your intent wasn't to harm someone, and you've said your piece, so don't stress about it. Thanks. Otherwise, what I would say is I do think we'll be able to get this head in the right direction. I do. I think that we've made some major strides from where we were to where we are, and now we're at that next stage of climbing the mountain. So I feel pretty good about it. Other than that, I wanted to say congratulations to the girls softball team. and winning sections. That was a pretty awesome deal for them. I think that at some point we'll want to recognize that. Other than that, also to the boys baseball team for a 20-year season or 20-win season. That's pretty solid work, and going into the semis for the sections as well. So we have some pretty good baseball around here in softball. So I'd like to see that continue. I don't have anything else to say tonight other than enjoy your evenings.